Hey, Mason here. Hope you've had a good league start for 0.4. In the background footage, you'll see some Abyss overrun maps to give you a good idea of how the build looks for its clear. And this video will serve as the full comprehensive guide for Gas Grenade PlagueFinger Pathfinder, which was my league start. Originally, on around day 2, I had a bit of a midlife crisis. I wanted to play a bunch of other stuff. I tried a few different things, but I decided that this build deserved for me to come back and complete it. At least to my standard of completion, as well as make an informative full beginning to end guide for it. So that's what this video will serve as. As for what my standard of build completion is, I'm not really a big juicer, so I generally play until I've completed all content in the game, so generally 8 out of 8 for all the Atlas trees. But for this particular build in general, it was so budget friendly and had so much power built into some of the interactions that I just didn't even complete most of my content. I think I only played 24 hours on this character, and the character was basically capable of doing all the bosses, albeit with some caveats, which I'll talk about a bit in the strengths and weaknesses section. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get on with the build. The build uses Plague Bearer plus Herald of Plague for its clear, and the reason why I've chosen Plague Bearer is because 1, it is very budget friendly because it does not care about your weapon. The base damage on Plague Bearer is a base damage that is stored from poisons you do outside of it. And these base damage numbers do not care about how good your weapon is or how bad your weapon is. This makes it a very good league starter because it's very efficient to get into tier 15s because all you care about is gem level. And to pair alongside that, we use Herald of Plague to spread the poisons created by Plague Bearer. Herald of Plague is also a very powerful propagation tool, so a clearing tool, because it allows the poisons to be infinitely spread across mobs depending on the density of your map. It is not like other heralds which require a corpse, and that gives us a very huge advantage with this build, which allows us to do simulacrums, because simulacrums don't have corpses. As for single target, after investigating and looking around after last league, I've decided to settle on Gas Grenade. The reason why I've picked Gas Grenade is because 1, it does more damage than other options, so for example it actually has a better base damage than Toxic Growth, especially after the nerfs to it. And 2 is that it has very good crit scaling with the way gas clouds work and fishing for crits. And 3 is that it covers a very large area, which makes it very comfortable for doing most of the mechanics in the game. For example, Simulacrum, Expedition, Ritual. You can place your gas grenades and it will cover the entire screen as they spread out, and it basically makes it very easy to do these stationary content. Okay, so let's talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses. So first, to preface, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not here to sell you my build. I'm here to objectively put my build out there, and so you can judge whether you think this is good or bad, and you can judge whether you want to play it or not. I'm not here to tell you this is the most broken build, this is the most insane build, etc, etc. I'm here to basically get an objective take on my build, talk about some of the learnings that I had, and talk about some of the tech I used, and you can decide whether you want to take this into your own builds, or you can play the build, or whatever. So with that in mind, that's why I'm going through the strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so as mentioned before, this build is very league start friendly because it's very budget friendly, and this is mainly due to the way Plague Bearer works, where it doesn't really care about your weapon, which means that when you're progressing without a good weapon, you have decent clear. Once you have a good weapon, that will basically help you with your bossing DPS, and crafting a weapon is actually not that hard for this build. The next part is great clear, poison proliferations, still great, still self-chaining. If you have enough density in your map, it will go off screen. They're still amazing at the moment, and they haven't been nerfed. The build has good recovery and solid defenses, so the defenses are primarily evasion ES with ghost dance, and the recovery is primarily from a life flask plus Chevron's fine belt, plus enduring elixir ascendancy node on Pathfinder. The build is all content viable, and bossing is good, however you need to invest to one-shot uber bosses, especially with the damage reduction nerfs they've added this league. Okay, so the key weakness with the budget setup is that you won't have a very large max hit pool, so life and energy shield. This is solved once you swap to a global defense stacking setup, which I will put in the timestamps below. But basically the setup will use the new Pathfinder's Traveler's Wisdom node, and then you'll click global defenses on every single attribute node possible, and you'll use astramentis to solve your attributes. The global defense setup loses a little bit of quality of life. However, you gain so much max hit, I 100% think it's worth going towards, and it will make your mapping and bossing very comfortable. And it stops stuff like this from happening, where Arbiter can kill you in one shot. Personally, I don't think Arbiter should be able to do that while you're dodging donuts, but I guess that's how GGG designed the boss, so it is what it is. I'm not really complaining about that. But yeah, we're going to finally go in game, show you my time played. It's 1 day and 7 hours, and my Pilfering ring is 4 divines and nearly 200 exalts. In terms of stuff I sold on the market, I've sold a decent amount. However, I haven't really invested the actual money that I've sold into my character. So I've sold like one divine here and like a few divine here. I've actually been using them to buy boss fragments to speed up the process of getting to the bosses. But yeah, just going to go through the gems and the skills. To start, you have Gas Grenade here. Gas Grenade is level 19 with 20 quality. The quality is nice quality of life. You have Persistent Ground here, so it doesn't explode because you're playing poison. You have this for poison. You have this for poison. You have this one because it gives you 20% more damage. The movement speed penalty does not really matter because you're playing Pathfinder and you're running this node right here. And in general, you want to dash after you Gas Grenade in maps because you want to cancel the end lag that comes from using grenades in general. The final one I've decided to use is Encroaching Ground. This one is a bit more of a quality of life one since it makes the gas grenade spread really big. So it's good for bossing because the bosses move a lot, so the grenade covers a large area. However, it's less damage. It's not a damage multiplier. If you want a damage multiplier and you swap to crit, you can look at Blindside. But the issue is that Blindside makes the gas grenade a lot smaller. So if the boss moves, like Arbiter, he moves a lot, the clouds won't cover him. You need to reshoot your grenades and then have them to repop the clouds again. That's why I'm using Encroaching Ground. I think it's just a good, nice, universal link. If you want even more damage, you can consider two other additional options. The first one is Heft, which gives you 30% more max hit. Like it raises the damage on the gem itself. And the last option that is very expensive is Ulneto's Embrace. Ulneto's Embrace makes it so that your fizz is, you gain extra physical damage as chaos, and it's expensive. Let me see how much it is. Do I have any? It's like 14 divines, so I actually don't recommend you buy this thing. I don't think it's worth the money. But if you want to keep investing, why not, right? The one thing with Gas Grenade is how do you tell if something increases your DPS? You open the tab here, you click Poison Cloud here, and you look for these numbers here. So 6,600 to 18,000. That's how you determine whether it actually changes your gas DPS. So for example, if I take this out, you'll see that my damage actually went to 15,000. If I put it back in, back to near 18, like the top end, right? 18,000. Take out Deadly Poison, etc. And you'll see that Heft actually makes a difference when you put it in or not. Arakali's Lust won't be calculated in here because it's a conditional, but the ones that aren't conditionals will change this tooltip, and that's how you should look at Gas Grenade's tooltip. Gas Grenade would be on your weapon set 1, which is your crossbow setup. The next skill I'm using is Flash Grenade. Flash Grenade is a very, very good tool for early game defenses because it stuns everything it hits basically instantly. Once you get more evasion and ES on your gear, you rely on this less. But the main primary purpose for it is to gain fuel for Plaguebearer, to basically poison mobs to fill up your Plaguebearer quickly. So Flash Grenade is with multi-shot, stun 2, poison 3, cooldown recovery 2. Poison 3 on Flash Grenade makes it so that it poisons. When it poisons, it will fill up your Plaguebearer. The reason why we're using Flash Grenade is because it's instant, you pop it and it immediately pops. It's not like Gas Grenade where you have to pop it and then you like run past it and it pops for the actual poisons to be tick. And so if you're running in a map quickly like this, and you shoot your gas grenade, like it's ages. It's so far behind you by the time by the time the mobs actually get into the poison to fill up your Plaguebearer. So what ends up happening is instead you will Flash Grenade in, and then that will fill up your Plaguebearer, and then you will pop your Plaguebearer to clear the entire pack. That's generally what my purpose of Flash Grenade is, and it's also a good defensive tool for early game, and it also gives blind, which I'll talk about once you swap to the crit setup. The next skill is the primary clear skill. It is Plaguebearer supported by Deadly Poison, Bursting Plague, Poison 3, Mag Effect, and Fizz Mastery. If you want to use Astral Projection in this socket here, that's also perfectly fine. It is personal preference. Fizz Mastery increases the total amount of poison stored, so it says 15,000 over here. If I take this out, it will say 12,000. So if you think about that, how much damage that is increased, it's about 20% DPS increase from Plaguebearer, so it's a pretty big deal, which is why I recommend you get a very high level Plaguebearer. You can also invest further in this, level 20 gem, blah blah blah. I haven't done that. In terms of the key interaction that with Plaguebearer that hasn't been patched this patch, and we're not sure if it's going to get changed, is Bursting Plague plus Poison 3. Bursting Plague says, okay, the way you think about this skill is that when a mob dies from a poison, it will explode, dealing a percentage of the damage it's taken from the poison. So we'll just say 20% max HP. This explode hits. It hits dealing physical damage, right here you can see that, and this physical damage can poison. That's why we're using Poison 3. Poison 3 gives that physical pop a 60% chance to poison. When that physical pop poisons, it counts as you using a poison for Plaguebearer, which then refills Plaguebearer, allowing you to basically infinitely loop Plaguebearer on high density maps. That's why both of these are very important, and when you are playing, this build in general, you want to only swap over to gas grenade once you have both. You have like a 4-link, a 3-link for Plague Bearer. Aside from that, there's not much to talk about, and Plague Bearer is not very useful because it has no damage numbers in here, so we can't really see how it scales. It's not helpful at all here. Okay, the next skill is your utility skill. It's Thunderstorm. So Thunderstorm is a skill that drenches enemies, and there's an insane support that was introduced this league, which makes it so that supported hits always always shock drenched targets. What this means is it is a 1-button duration skill. You press it, it lasts for 12 seconds, and it auto shocks the mob that you're bossing on. It's very, 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 very strong because it requires no investment in gear, no investment in weapon. It doesn't care about anything except the actual skill itself being a high level, because it says here that drenched enemies need to be above a certain level. Where does it say this again? It's not on the gem. Okay, well, I can tell you that it only drenches certain mobs. You have to have a certain level. I'll show you another Thunderstorm in my inventory quickly. Do I have one? No. That's fine. I'll just cut a gem right now. Okay, so you see here, it says that cannot drench enemies above level 72. That's why you need to have a high level Thunderstorm. Just keep that in mind. So if you're not shocking, that's why. That's why my Thunderstorm is a level 19. So it's a level 19 Thunderstorm and Shock Reduction 2, and it auto shocks mobs. And then we're combining this with some tech that I haven't seen other people use. It is Overcharge with Commiserate. Overcharge gives you more shock magnitude. So the shock will be, instead of 20%, it will be like 35%. I think for me, in particular, it gets to 36% because I have some stuff on the tree. And Commiserate says that it has 40% more magnitude, but this is bugged. The way this interaction works is Commiserate will remove the shock that you inflict on yourself from Overcharge, but it won't apply the more multiplier magnitude on this gem itself. But the reason why we're combining these two is because Overcharge is such a good way to get a bigger shock, and there's no other options that are anywhere near close to this. That's why Overcharge plus Commiserate, but you won't get the 40% magnitude from Commiserate, you will only get the 50% from Overcharge. Blind 2 is used for utility, and it's mainly used to cap crit with some nodes on the tree, which I'll talk about in the tree section. But I'll just cover them briefly here. Some crit nodes here, and it also enables blindside if you want to use that for single target. Okay, the next skill is Eye of Winter. Oh, this will be in your weapon set too. The next skill is Eye of Winter. Eye of Winter is used because it is very, very fast hitting skill, and it's combined with cooldown, crit chance, and projectile deceleration for more hits. Eye of Winter's primary purpose is because of the weapon swap. In my weapon swap, I have the Wicked Quill, which gives a 25% chance to inflict Wither for 4 seconds on hit. Eye of Winter hits a lot of times, same as Thunderstorm, so this will help you get Wither uptime, and critical hits with spells apply 3 stacks of crit weakness. That's why we've supported Eye of Winter with 2 crit supports. This basically means that because I have this set to weapons at 2, when I cast Eye of Winter, it caps Wither, which we can see here how much that is. It's 5% increased damage, up to 10 times, so 50% increased damage taken. And it also caps my crit weakness, which gives me 10% base crit. This is insane, right? You're getting both full Wither, 50% more damage taken, and capped like another 10% more base crit, which is more than my actual weapon itself. That's why both of these are set to the weapon set 2, and if you really want to, you can put in more crit supports in Thunderstorm. So if you want a 6-socket Thunderstorm, you can put in Duration, you can put in Mag Effect, you can put in one of these crit ones. If you want a 6-socket Eye of Winter, I would probably recommend you put in Efficiency for the mana cost, since it's very high. Otherwise, you can also put in like stuff like Blind, or I think that's really it, right? You only have those few options there. In terms of the next skill is your Curse. It will just be Despair with Curse Ground, Heightened Curse, and Efficiency. That's really it. And then for your 2 auras, you'll be running Herald of Plague plus Chaos Mastery, which is not D&D, and then Ghost Dance plus Compressed Duration for the Shrouds to be quicker. That's really it. I think that more or less covers it for the skills. I'm now going to walk over the gear itself. So, I'm going to start with my crossbow. My crossbow is T3, T3, T1, and then it has an essence prefix for the gain damage as extra fizz, as well as the +5 to attack skills and the critical chance hit, which is T5. I would consider this crossbow not great, but we can quickly price search this to see how much it would actually cost if I bought it. So we're just going to search this. We'll see how much it says. It says 35 divines. However, this is much cheaper to craft, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Alright, so I've got Craft of Exile open here. This is what you will be starting off as your base. You'll want the physical damage modifier, and then you'll want any suffix, does not matter. You can buy these from trade for 10 exalts. Very cheap. This is your base that you'll start with, and I'll show you how to craft this now. The first step is that you want to add in flat damage, flat chaos damage with the greater essence of abrasion, which I'll show right here. Where is it? Greater essence of abrasion adds physical damage like this. Now you have 2 physical prefixes, and then for your next one is that you will be using an omen that adds extra exalts. So it's the one called Greater Exaltation, combined with a suffix omen, which is, I'll try and find it right here, Dextral Exaltation. This will make it so that your next exalt, which you can generally use a perfect one, will add 2 suffixes. So now we've got 2 suffixes filled and 2 prefixes. So there's 2 options here. The first one is that you use the very, very expensive Dextral Crystallization Omen, which will remove only suffixes and add prefixes. You will combine this omen with the Perfect Essence of Abrasion, which gives you damage as extra fizz damage, gain damage as extra fizz. But this is very, very, very expensive, so there's a trick that you can do. Because the base is so cheap at 10 exalts, instead of just using this, we're just going to gamble on this item instead. What we do is we literally just hit the item with the Perfect Essence of Abrasion, and we pray that we win a 3 in 2. The reason why it's a 3 in 2 is because this item has the chance to remove a mod, and we have 5 mods here, and we want 2 mods. We don't want to remove 2 mods, but we don't care if any of these suffixes get removed, because they're just all bad, right? So in that case, we use the Perfect Essence of Abrasion. Let's see if we hit. Okay, we missed. So that would mean that this base is bricked. You will have to go and buy a new base. In that case, it will cost you 12 exalts to buy a new base. So let's restart from the beginning. So now we've got our base again. Let's repeat the process again. We're going to use the Greater Essence of Abrasion. Now we have 2 fizz lines that we want. And now we're going to use the Greater Exaltation. So in this case, I'm not going to use a perfect exalt, like the good ones, because we actually don't really care that much about the exalts themselves, like the mods themselves. So we're just going to use normal exalt. This should add 2 suffixes now that we have 3 suffixes and 2 prefixes. Then we're going to hit it again with the same perfect essence, which is like 4 exalts or something. Okay, we lost again. Let us restart again. Okay, same process again. I'm trying to do it quickly because we know how it's done. Okay, and let's see if we win this gamble as well. Okay, we lost again. So obviously this will be RNG. It will be a 3 in 5. However, eventually you will hit this with around a 50% chance. So let's just keep going again until I hit this basically. Okay, that's crazy that we lost that again and again. Alright, I'm going to restart in case it's actually seeded on here, because I'm not actually 100% sure if it actually has any seeding. But the idea is that each time you fail, you'll be paying 15 exalts for the base and like 4 exalts for the essence. So you're actually not losing anything, and eventually you'll hit because the chance is relatively high mathematically. So let's start with this again. I'm going to grab our T3 Fizz, because it's cheap. I'm going to randomly get a suffix and repeat the process. So Greater Essence of Abrasion. And then we're going to use Dextral with Greater Exaltation with a normal exalt. And then we're going to hit it with the Perfect Essence. Okay, we lost again. Let's undo this step and we'll hit it again. Alright, let's just say we finally won, right? We've got 3 prefixes here. We've got the fizz damage, the flat that we added from the essence, and the Greater Abrasion Perfect Essence. Your crossbow is more or less finished. You just need to apply the Greater Essence, sorry, the Perfect Essence of Battle, I think it's called, which I will find here. Where is it? This one right here. So the way I recommend you craft this at this particular stage right now is you first give it a desecration. You just jawbone it, right? In this case, we're going to use the cheap jawbone. That's the wrong jawbone. We're going to use the cheap one. Preserve jawbone. Because it has an open suffix, it will add a jawbone suffix. We don't care. And then you'll be using the Perfect Essence of Battle, and you'll pray that it doesn't hit the suffix. This suffix you don't want it to hit. The other 2 you don't mind. So it's a 2 in 3. Okay, we missed. Let's try again. Okay, we finally hit. So now we've got the plus attack skills. We have the Desecrate, and then we have... this one doesn't really matter, and we have 3 good prefixes that we wanted. Now, you go for the Unveil, and it's kind of personal preference whether you want to unveil with an omen or not. So in that case, it will be the... Where's the omen called? Abyssal Echoes omen. It is your personal preference whether you want to use this or not. However, the base is so cheap, so if you're using something with a tier 3 fizz roll, I wouldn't recommend it. But say you're using something with like a tier 2 fizz roll, it may be more expensive, you might want to do it. So it might be worth doing depending on the price. Otherwise, you probably do it with a tier 1 fizz roll, which would be very expensive, right? So very, very, very expensive for tier 1 fizz roll. If you're using a tier 1, like if your base is this expensive, I recommend you use and spend the money on the dextral crystallization to guarantee that it removes a suffix and adds a prefix instead of gambling like I'm doing here, which is much cheaper because the base is a lot cheaper. Okay, let's go for the desecration. We hit efficiency, mana cost, light radius. Terrible, right? You'd probably pick this one here. However, you're basically rolling this into hit crit, but you actually don't really need the crit line. It's kind of quality of life and it helps with consistency. However, it's not really required because of the way gas grading works with crit, which I'll talk about in a bit after going over some of the more information. Okay, that's basically how you craft this crossbow. Eventually, you repeat this process until you hit crit, which we'll see if we can actually hit it. It may take a few times, and I think crit has a pretty low rating, so we'll be here for a while, I think. But yeah. Okay, anyways. Alright, you get the idea. If you hit crit, you hit crit. If you don't hit crit, you don't hit crit. It doesn't really matter that much on this crossbow. And then standard stuff, quality it up, put sockets in, put fizz damage into it. That's really it for the crafting. Okay, so now we go on the helmet. This helmet cost me 50x, but it's basically high ES, high life, and some attributes and some res. You kind of pick this by how you're going. Like depending on your budget, right? You want to get a better one if you have more budget. If you don't want one, then you get a cheaper one. The main point of this is just to increase your max hit pool by increasing your life and your ES. And the helmet I was using before is this really garbage helmet from level 54 that I took all the way until just before I started fighting Uber Arbiters and testing damage. For amulet, you want something with plus projectile skills and some attributes. In my case, I crafted this amulet using a collarbone. It actually ended up pretty good. I started with projectile skills, and then I had the energy shield. And then it also had the res and the suffix, and I used the collarbone to fish for the prefix. But you can really just settle with projectile skills and some res and some affixes, like the suffixes. Best in slot will be projectile skills and spirit, because that will let you fit in Wind Dancer or Withering Presence in your empty slot here, which will help you have good uptime on Wither on bosses, because Wither will fall off after a set duration, since this offhand swap says 4 seconds, right? It says 4 seconds on here. My rings are just life, strength, resistances, nothing else. No flat damage, nothing else. These rings should not be very expensive. I think I bought them for like 10 to 20 C. But let's have a look here. So I'm just going to search. We'll just search by exactly what the metrics are on this ring. 510C, and if I add in the lightning base, 35. So probably like within the 10 to 30, 10 to 40 C exalt range. And same for this one here. But this one has some life on it, which is the only difference that the other one doesn't. So if we search exactly by these mods here, so it'll be life and the reses. It says 2 to 3 divine, but if you lower some of the filters, so for example, if I put this to like 60, 2 to 3 divine still, obviously looks like it's a bit expensive. But the general idea is that if you look for reses, so for example, if I click this total elemental res one here, the life here, let's see if it's cheaper, 30C. Alright, so you're don't look for exactly my reses, look for reses to cap your own. If you look for a different type of reses, it will be cheaper. Don't look for exactly what I'm looking for. So that particular combination turned out it was very expensive. In this case, look for something else that's cheaper. And fix your reses on other pieces of gear. For your chest piece, you're looking for high evasion chest piece with, it's literally it, right? It's just high evasion, res is good, attribute is good. Just focus on the evasion. The reason why we're using an evasion chest piece is because of this passive node right here, which gives us a ton of evasion rating from our body armor, and this passive node right here, which gives us a ton of ES based on our body armor. That's why we want a pure evasion body armor, so we can double dip with both this and this node here to get the most efficiency from our gear. The next piece is your gloves. My gloves have life, res, dex, and some flat physical damage, but like an absolute awful roll. All you're looking for on gloves is generally just an ES based glove, so you want some ES on it. And then you maybe want some attributes because the build will have attribute problems. And you're just looking for life. That's really it. So in this case, we're going to look for life and elemental res. And it's like 10 exalt here and up to 40 exalt. But again, if you lower the metrics, it will be cheaper or more expensive, right? As for the belt, you're looking for a chevron satchel. The reason why we're using chevron satchel is because the line that says life recovery from flasks also applies to energy shield. in combination with this node right here, which makes it so that our life flasks don't stop when our life is full. This gives us crazy amounts of instant recovery because we're using a life flask with instant recovery here. This says 30% of recovery is applied instantly if it recovers 1000 life, but on the skill tree, we're clicking some of these increased recovery life from flask nodes here. This will be like 40%, I think it was. So our life flask recovers a lot instantly, and it recovers both our ES and our life, which allows us to sustain both metrics of our hit pool. The corruption does not matter on this thing, by the way. I just corrupted it for fun, and it hit something useful. But it's like basically does not matter. Just get one that's cheap. Non-corrupted is probably very cheap. Let's have a look. So we literally do not care about any of the lines. It's like 10 exalts, right? Just go buy one of these. Okay, the final one is your boots. Your boots are very, very standard across most builds in the game. It's movement speed, life, some sort of evasion ES on it, and then fire, light, like res and suffixes for this build. In my case, these boots I think were like 45x, and I mainly focused on getting some ES here, and then having a life, like a good amount of life for max hit, movement speed for obviously movement speed, and then some reses to help cap, and dex because you need suffixes on the build. So you want to get some suffixes somewhere on the build. For flasks, this flask I mentioned before, instant recovery, high amount on an ultimate flask. Reduced charges per use is better than gain charges because this one makes it so that I can click my flask 10 times versus 7. But the gain charges is like you get a click of your flask every 50 seconds, which takes forever. This one here is just thawing, stone, and fire because of that bug. You don't need this one. It does nothing. Just get a dowsing charm, a normal one, right? Do not use this. I picked it up. It's been put on for fun. Mana flask does not matter. Just make sure it gives you enough mana to use your combo. As for your weapon swap, which I mentioned before, we'll be using Wicked Quill, which is like super, super cheap. And Effigy of Cruelty, which is now super, super cheap. The only thing you care about on Effigy of Cruelty is this mod that says 3 stacks of crit weakness, which is, if I just take some of these, 25x. So it's not expensive at all. I bought mine for, I think it was like 5x this morning. So I'm actually not sure why it's gone up. But let me just quickly look it up on the trade site in game. Okay, so it looks like someone's using this or someone's buying this. The price went up a bit. I bought mine for 8x, but it's pretty cheap, right? You don't care about anything else on these two. These two are generally just for your wither and your crit, and your debuffing skills from Eye of Winter and Thunderstorm. Okay, that talks about it for the gear. And now I'm going to talk about, oh sorry, one more thing is jewels. For jewels, you want something with mana on kill. So this one has mana on kill and increased ailment, like the magnitude of ailments. The other two lines don't matter. And I think my other jewel, I just have some random damage notes, like damaging ailments, increased damage against rares and uniques, increased magnitude of poison. Just pick whatever's cheap. Don't spend too much money on these. They're not that significant. And there's a jewel socket here. If you have an extra level, you can also grab that as well. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the skill tree, and I'm going to start with the Ascendancy. So I've picked Pathfinder, but we're actually not clicking any of the nodes that you may think that we should be clicking. These two in particular. First is usually clicking this because you want to double the damages from your poison. Gas Cloud has 6 clouds, which matches 6 poisons. And the way you get 6 poisons is 1 poison from here, 1 poison from here, and you have 1 poison base. So 3 poisons times 2 from this node here gets us to 6 poisons, which is the same that matches Gas Cloud's max count, like from Gas Grenade, which is 6. Maximum, it should say here, limit 6 poison clouds. As in terms of quality of life, I've decided to settle with Relentless Pursuit and Running Assault. These two just make it so you can sprint everywhere in your map and not be scared about anything. And I think it's great quality of life, so I've clicked these two. And because we've clicked these two, we've also taken these sprint nodes over here. In the next section of the video, I'll be covering the global defense setup. That will require you dropping these 4 passive points. You would take up to the Traveler's Wisdom nodes. Then you'll use a slow charm, and all of that is explained in the next section. You'll also be putting on an astramentis to help solve your attributes. This is the recommended setup. For once you have some money and you would like to swap off the budget setup, and it would allow you to basically have a massive ES hit pool as well as have really good evasion steal, and it allows you to avoid the problems or the weaknesses of the build originally where the max hit is a bit of a struggle. Unfortunately, you lose some quality of life because of the Pathfinder passive nodes. However, you gain so much defensive stats, I 100% think it's worth considering, and skipping the timestamps, it'll talk about how you transition. You actually path from Sork Tree as well to grab some of those ES nodes. Okay, and the final node for Pathfinder we picked is Life Enduring Elixirs here. This in combination with this makes it so that our life flask applies instantly to both ES and life, and we get a good life flask to support that and allow us to regen our energy shield without other means. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about the skill tree itself. To start with, taking all these damage notes right here, going straight to here. The reason why we're coming down here is to boost the flask effect, which makes our life flask heals us for even more. And we're going down through here, and perfectly, there's movement speed notes here. So we're grabbing those movement speed notes here. Over here, we've put poison on our weapon swap. So that's these 3 notes here. These, like whatever these notes are here. And we are pathing all the way down here to grab these 3 notes here. These damaging element nodes are extremely important. It's like 30% more damage. They are basically mandatory on this build. And this is the way I've decided to grab them, because these nodes coming down give magnitude of ailments. Some of them give a small amount, and putting them in both weapon sets lets Thunderstorm apply a slightly bigger shock. Right? It's not a big deal. If you are willing to put more money in, you can buy a From Nothing jewel. So I'll just show you what this looks like. From Nothing diamond with Oasis. This is 45x. I probably could buy it, but I'm not going to. The idea is that you put it in one of these sockets, so this socket right here, and then it will give you the ability to allocate around this node here, and you pick up these 3 nodes right here with that. That will save you all of these traveling nodes, which aren't the most efficient, and this will allow you to put these into other stuff. In terms of what other stuff you can put it into, there's a damage node here. You can take the Sork thing here and grab all these energy shield nodes here. There's also some energy shield nodes here that you can path over to here. There's some area of effect nodes here that you can pick up. There's a few different options for if what you want to pick up if you wanted to go the route from using Oasis. That's probably how you would min-max this character more, and that's probably the route I would take as well. In terms of the rest of the skill tree, we're grabbing Subterfuge Mask here, which means that we need a very, very high energy shield helmet. In my case, my helmet has both energy shield and life, because I saw this on the market and it was cheap. But that's why we're going energy shield on the helmet. This thing has a high int requirement, which is why you want to get attributes on your tree and on your gear. Next, we're grabbing these poison nodes here. This is very, very strong with Herald of Plague. It basically means that if a poison is being spread to a non-poisoned enemy, it would be 60% larger. And this infinitely chains across the map if you have enough density. So if you can have one poison chain all the way across the map to like 20 mobs, at the very end, the 20 mob will have a massive poison, because every single time it spreads, it gains the 60% increased poison effect, basically. Over here, we're grabbing these sprint nodes in weapon set 1 because of the running assault here node here. And over here, we're grabbing this crit wheel here, and we're grabbing this evasion node here for the body armor. Right here, we're grabbing these poison wheels. These 3 are in my weapon set 1, but this one, I want to be immune to poison in both my weapon sets. That's why it's on my main tree. Up here, grabbing this in weapon set 1, and we're grabbing this in both weapon sets. The reason why is it says increased physical damage. Plague Bearer, albeit it doesn't show on the skill gem. I'm very confident it does because I tested it. It scales of increased phys damage because it says deals physical damage equal to the stored poison. So if you grab increased phys damage, it will increase the damage of your Plague Bearer, which will make it a bit better for clear. Over here, we're grabbing these blind nodes and these crit chance against blinded enemies. These are very efficient because they give you a very large amount of crit for the effect. And the way we're blinding our enemies is 1, Flash Grenade will blind, and 2, we have a blind support in our Thunderstorm, which is sitting on the boss for 12 seconds because it has a duration of 12 seconds right here, Storm duration. So it's basically always up. These crit nodes are always up. They're put in both weapon sets because we want the crit chance of Ire Winter to get benefit from our skill tree, because we need it to crit to apply crit weakness from the Effigy of Cruelty, this one right here, because it's only critical hits. And then for the rest of the tree, we're grabbing these crit nodes here, and we're grabbing this defensive node right here. In terms of our weapon swap, which I'll just show right now, it's very straightforward. We're pathing all the way up here. You want to click int on every single node here, because Despair has a very high int requirement. You see in my first weapon set, I can't actually use it. In my second weapon set, I can. And that's why we're clicking int on every single travel node here. And we're just grabbing the curse magnitude here, the curse magnitude here, and some crit here. And we're putting this in our weapon set again to help benefit Eye of Winter and Thunderstorm to make them crit more for Effigy of Cruelty. Okay, so in this section of the video, I'll be talking about the global defense stacking setup. So this is my current character. It's a little bit different to what you saw in the previous clips, and as well as when I was going through the gems and the overview. This character has 52% evasion, however, it has 5,000 energy shield. With the new Pathfinder node right here, Traveler's Wisdom, it allows us to click every single attribute into increased defenses. Increased defenses is an absolutely insane stat if you have experience for POE1. This stat is like probably the most premium defensive stat in POE1. It basically allows me to increase both my evasion and my energy shield, kind of like clicking one of these small nodes here, like 12% evasion and energy shield, this is basically like 12% increased defenses. But we get this on every single small passive node possible. So what does that really result in? The first thing is I bought a Oasis from nothing to take these 3 nodes here. This frees up all these passive points here, which gives me a massive amount of new passive points. And then we're taking this one right here, which gives me 4 passive skill points. And then we're changing some of the pathing over here so that we're clicking less of these damaging nodes. We're taking this small wheel, which is higher values, like it's more compact, costs less points, but allows us to click increased defenses on every single small passive node here. And the key reason why we can actually click this now is because we're using an astramentis to solve our attributes. With an astramentis, we basically full cap all our attributes without any significant issues. And because we're using astramentis, that lets us click every single passive node on the tree. You see here, every single one of these is turned into increased defenses. This results in a massive amount of increased energy shield from like 1k or 1.5k that I had before to like 5k energy shield. And because we're playing Pathfinder, we have this new node here that lets us start from Sork, and we're taking best use out of that. We're clicking energy shield. So over here, we're pathing right here, going through every single energy shield node possible, and going over here to get this energy shield wheel here. This crit wheel here is also pretty good. You could grab this if you would like some more crit, but I didn't really bother because the rest of the skill tree was already pretty tight. So with all these energy shield nodes here, and every single attribute clicked into global defenses, we gain a ton of energy shield and a ton of evasion to basically allow us to tank arbiter attacks, like the basic attacks, without having to worry on bosses. The next key thing with this is this chest piece. This chest piece cost me 22 exalts. You can ignore every single line on this chest piece except the cold rares, which I needed, as well as the high evasion and energy shield. This one has like 1,150. I think this is still pretty bad. You can get a little bit higher, like 1.4k evasion with like 500, 600 energy shield. But we're swapping to a hybrid chest piece because it gives us so much base energy shield to work with, like flat energy shield, that all our global defenses are increasing. So let me show you what this looks like. This is my old chest piece that I was using in the previous showcase. And if I take this off and I put this on, you see I'm at like 3,700 energy shield, but I have 63% evasion. If we swap this to the hybrid, my energy shield goes to 5,400, but my evasion is 52. So I lose 10% evasion for like another like 1,000 and a bit, like nearly 2k energy shield. 100% worth it. I think it's less than 2k. It's like 1.8k or something. But it's like 100% worth using a hybrid chest piece. Hybrid chest piece would be Sleek Jacket, and it's pretty easy to actually search this up. You just have to look for high evasion, high energy shield, and then something to cap your res. And the rest of them don't really matter, and the life is like a bonus, but it's not really needed. Mainly the high evasion and high energy shield is what you want. So now that we've swapped over to this setup with the astramentis, we lose a little bit of damage. I think my tooltip went from like 3.8k to like 3.14. But as a bonus for losing some damage, we gain a ridiculous amount of max hit. If you would like some more damage back, feel free to grab the increased defenses. However, 5% increased defenses per travel node is not great because there's other, like, you can get like 40% here, right? So this is like 4 travel nodes of that. And this one here is like 5, this one here is like 4 times 8 travel nodes. And then this one here is 4 travel nodes, so 4 times 5, so 5 travel nodes. So 4 travel nodes of 5% increased damage each. So it's very inefficient to grab increased damage. But for example, this energy shield node here is 12% increased defenses basically, which is like 3 of these passive points, right? This one here is the same, 3 of these passive points. And then over here, it's like you have the path so far to get to some of these nodes. And some of these nodes here, 12%, 12%, 12%. It's very efficient to grab increased defenses in terms of what you actually get for it, which is a ton of evasion and a ton of energy shield. And what you lose for it, which is not really that much, some damage, but not really something that you can't solve. As for upgrading further, the key next step, so you've solved max hit now with this setup, you lose some damage. The key next step is probably getting some more damage back. It would be like upgrading your crossbow, upgrading your rings to have flat damage on them, and using a PlagueFinger. So in case you don't know what PlagueFinger is, just look it up here. So you're looking for a PlagueFinger that has no corruption, that has no twice corrupt, because there's corrupted ones that remove this line here. All damage from hits contributes to poison magnitude. Looking for something like this. Everyone's null scamming at the moment, but I think it's like 2 divines, I think it was, when I checked it earlier today. So let's have a look. No exalts, and then we'll just look for divines. So 2 divines for one of these. and you're looking for this all damage contributes to poison magnitude, and then you're looking for flat elemental damage or fizz on your prefixes for your rings. So in this case, I have none at all, so you upgrade both your rings, you'll change your gloves out, and that will basically help you a lot with damage. And also upgrade your crossbow, right? My crossbow is only T3, 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 like T3 with the prefixes. You can get a better one with that, like a better increased fizz damage roll. It will also help you get more damage. But that's kind of how you would work on upgrading this further. So here's a checklist on what you need to swap. Number 1, you'll be unspecking these 4 points here and clicking these points here. When you unspec these, make sure that you swap over to a silver charm so that you can't be slowed. The best silver charm is the unique one that gives you onslaught when it procs. The way you can search this up is this one, Fall of the Axe silver charm. This is the best one, but it's the most expensive. If you can't afford it, just use a normal silver charm. Next, because you're dropping these 4 points, you will want to change one of your links in Gas Grenade. You want to take out Deliberation because it feels really, really bad now, and you want to put in Heft instead. Again, if you want to use the more expensive ones, like All Neto's Embrace, or Blindside even, you can put that in here as well. I personally am just using Heft, because I don't always run around blinding mobs when I'm doing maps, right? Now that we've dropped all of these here, the next thing you'll be looking to buy is an astramentis. Your astramentis roll, the higher the better, however, you don't really need it to be that high, because you still have a ton of overcapped attributes now. But the idea is that you buy astramentis, which lets you free up all your travel nodes for increased defenses, as mentioned before. Now that we've done that, the next thing you'll want to buy is a From Nothing Diamond for Oasis. This will allow you to collect these 3 nodes without having to path there, saving you a ton of points, and all these new points get put into the Sork nodes up here. Aside from that, that's more or less it. The last one you will do is you will get a Hybrid Evasion Energy Shield chest piece, and this just gives you a ton of ES, as I've shown before already. Aside from that, my character has not had any other changes in addition. That's basically it. And then again, if you want to push damage further, you'll be doing your rings with prefixes for flat damage, as well as a PlagueFinger if you would like to go that route as well. And also remember to upgrade your crossbow itself. Again, my crossbow is T3, T3, T1. Each attempt of this is like 20x to actually roll for this, so you can always afford a more expensive one, like getting a tier 2 one, which will give you a lot more increased damage because the increased damage roll will be much higher. Just a reminder that my crossbow is also minimum rolled at 135 increased fizz damage, so you can also work on that as well. But yeah, that mostly summarizes this particular global defense setup stacking change. This one is more expensive because you need to get your damage somewhere else. However, you gain a ton of defenses. It's 100% worth doing because it will let you have a much more comfortable time when you're doing bosses, as well as general mapping. And because you're playing Chevron's Belt with Enduring Elixirs, your Life Flask will heal your ES, so you don't have to worry about your ES being depleted. One thing I wanted to also point out is there is an option for shock, which I didn't mention before, is using Plasma Blast. But Plasma Blast has a wind-up that makes it awful to play, which is why I've settled on using Thunderstorm. But if in case you want to have even more damage, Plasma Blast can shock up to like 60%, so you can use that, but it has like a very, very awkward attack pattern because you have to wait for 2 seconds to shoot it. When Thunderstorm, you just right click and then it just places the rain and it automatically shocks the mob without any hassle at all. Okay, so I was going to wrap it up there, but I'm going to quickly mention Crit and Gas Grenade because I haven't seen anything about this. So, Gas Grenade says, has a limit of 6 poison clouds, okay, and each cloud lasts 6 seconds, and the cloud does this much damage, right? On the explosion, sorry, this much damage. Gas Grenade also has behavior that is not written in here, where every 2 seconds, it will apply a poison. So the way we can understand this is, if I shoot my Gas Grenade out, it lands. If there's a mob in it, they'll take 1 poison. Then 2 seconds later, they'll have 2 poisons. Like they'll have another poison on them. And then 3 seconds later, they'll have another poison on them. That's how the behavior of Gas Grenade works in game. So the first thing is to think about how many poison stacks will be on a boss at any given time. So Gas Grenade has a duration of 6 seconds. But each poison is applied every 2 seconds. And in my case, on my character, which I will just quickly show, my poison duration, it should be like 1.7, I think. Let's have a look here. It says poison duration is 2.4 seconds. And this 2.4 seconds is boosted by this node right here. Oh, sorry, this node right here, which is not being applied onto the tooltip. So we can say 3 seconds. What this will mean is that you will have, in general, 6 poison stacks. Sorry, 12 poison stacks on a boss at any given time. So I'll just show you this right now. So say we have 6 clouds. So we've got 6 clouds on the boss. Each of them, every 2 seconds, they put a poison. And then the next 2 seconds later, they'll put a poison. But this poison lasts for, let's just say, 3.5 seconds. So at any given time on the boss, after the first poison has been applied, on the next poison here, you will have 12 poison stacks on a boss at any given time. The way poison works in POE2 is the highest damaging poison is the one that actually counts towards the poison count. I don't think it's written here, but that's how I believe this actually works, which basically ends up meaning that only 6 poisons out of the 12 total poisons that you have on the boss will be dealing damage. And this will be the 6 highest damaging poisons. So in that case, that'll be this number right here. So the way you can figure out your crit chance is actually very easy from this. You only need enough crit chance so that your 6 poisons on the boss are critting and your 12 poisons out of the total 12 poisons you have. In that case, 6 over 12 is 50%. You only need 50% crit in order to generally get good enough crit to cap every single poison on the boss to be a critted poison. So that's why in my particular setup in POB, in game, you see that my crit's not really that high. Over here, let's see if it actually tells me what my crit is. Okay, it says 14% right here, but that's without critical weakness from the effigy of cruelty here. My crossbow itself has 7% base crit, which is relatively low, and this gives me 10% crit, which is 17%, so it's more than doubling my crit. So you can think about that. If we go from 14, if we go more than double, it's going to probably be 35 to 40%, probably around the 40% crit chance mark. So you can min-max this a bit more and get it to 50% if you have a better crossbow, but however, you don't really need to, right? It's generally good enough. In terms of crit damage, you can also scale that, but the idea is that the critted gas grenade clouds, like the poisons from them, will will get the damage bonus from crit damage bonus. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And I think that was really the only other thing I wanted to mention on this build. And that's going to wrap it up for the video. This one's gone pretty long. And hope you enjoyed it and hope it was informative. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the description below, the comment section below. And I'll put the POB for my character, as well as progression for the character, in the description as well as the actual progressing part of the video. As a general gist, which I will just quickly pull up here, you will be playing non-crit up to like tier 15, so pre-crit, and then you'll swap over to crit. This is an old POB, so what I recommend you do is to go watch my previous video where I do actually cover this. So in that case, that would be this video here. I cover the non-crit setup, and to swap to crit, it's actually very easy. All you really need is this thing, skill points on your tree to click crit, 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 crit. And then you want cooldown recovery on your flash grenade so that you can drop this big wheel here, as well as these points. So because you path down here before, you can drop all of these points up here and save like a ton of points. If you have cooldown recovery on here, it feels good enough. And that's generally it. You don't really need anything else. You need the Eye of Winter and the Thunderstorm set up with the offhand swap, as well as points for int and stuff like that, as well as grabbing all the crit on the tree. But the transition is relatively straightforward. As for crit on your crossbow, you don't need the crit line. Again, I mentioned if you budget and you can't get it, just settle with whatever you have. Upgrade eventually if you want to, but it's not really that needed because a lot of your crit comes from Effigy of Cruelty anyways. So in total, you have 17% base crit with this and Effigy of Cruelty. But if you don't have the crit line, you have 15% base crit, which is, what is like 17 over 15. What is that? Let me just take a look. 15 over 17 is like 8. It's like you lose 10% crit. It's basically like 10% of your total crit chance, right? So if you have 40% crit, you lose 4 crit. Like it's not really that big of a deal personally. I think it's fine. You can settle without the crit mod. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I think it's going to be a bit rambly at the end. But yeah, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. And I will be working on the next build. Not too sure what that's going to be yet, but I'll probably make a video for that once I have the time and once the character progresses along a bit more. All right, thanks for watching.